The Mesaba Railway was an electric interurban line that ran the length of the Mesaba Iron Range from Hibbing all the way to Gilbert and Eveleth. And it ran from about 1914 to I think 1928, and really served all those communities as kind of a bridge between the horse and buggy and the automobile. And so we're going to take a tour from one end of it to the other. Interurbans were really larger streetcars that ran at higher speeds between towns. And this was an outgrowth starting really maybe about 1895, when electrification of streetcars became possible. People said, why couldn't we go and apply this technology to travel between towns? Because those short trips between towns, the steam railroads really didn't do a very good job of it. Their stations tended to be 5, 6, 7 miles apart, maybe 10 miles apart. They might run once, twice, 3 times a day. What the electricity allowed the interurbans to do was to have frequent stops, to run usually hourly, maybe even half-hourly service, and they could access the local streetcar line and literally get to the center of downtown. Here you see downtown Hibbing, and with the Mesaba electric car loading right smack in the middle of the street next to the Oliver Hotel. So the Mesaba Electric, as you can see, it started from Hibbing, went to Chisholm, Buell, Kinross, Mountain Iron, Virginia, and then following where the Iron Range went, down to Eveleth, and finally ending at Gilbert. And here you see the schedule. They ran trains once an hour from one end of the line to the other, from 5 in the morning to about midnight, 1 in the morning. They carried the miners to and from the pits. It was an essential part of doing business on the Iron Range. So we start in Hibbing, and this is 3rd Street in downtown Hibbing. You can see the cars coming down to the end of the line. Here's Hibbing. This might be the 4th of July with all the bunting up. The center of Hibbing, it was the Hotel Hibbing, later became the Oliver Hotel. A night view at the same location. And then from north of Hibbing, they took off on a bridge over the end of the pit, and they went around the north edge of what became the Hull Rust Mine. Here you see them running along the edge of the pit. Now, the Oliver Mining discovered that there was a great deal of iron ore directly under downtown Hibbing, and in a move that I'm sure hasn't been repeated very many other places, they picked up one building at a time, Hibbing, and moved it south a couple of miles to a new town site that became the present day downtown Hibbing. And this happened in the 1920s, like the end of World War I or so, in the 1920s. So here, they've extended the track over this little humpback bridge, and North Hibbing is still intact, but they're going to be making the move here pretty soon. And here they're building the main street in downtown Hibbing, and this is the Y going into their new depot. And here's their new depot in new downtown Hibbing. This building, by the way, survives as a restaurant and bar. And here they are actually moving buildings from North Hibbing to new South Hibbing, as they put it. This is 1923. Now, because they wound up with a stub end of the interurban line between South Hibbing and North Hibbing, they bought a couple of used streetcars and ran a separate streetcar service to connect the two during this whole period where North Hibbing was being moved. And so this is that streetcar. This is an unfortunate incident here where the interurban was crossing a railroad track. This overhead wire thing here was to keep the overhead wire pole. If it dewired, this was an electrified mesh, and the car could still get off the track, but it's been hit by a train. Now, this is towards the end, And this is the end of the line. Once again, here's the Oliver Hotel, which was smack in the middle of the old downtown. As you can see, it's almost all gone. And the car is reversing direction. That's why both poles are up. He just hasn't put the front pole down yet. Here's the motorman. And here they are now. They're starting to remove the tracks in downtown Hibbing. And so now we're in New South Hibbing, and we're looking east from the depot, because here's where the depot was. And so they took off and built a whole new line between Hibbing and Chisholm, going around the south side rather than the north side of the pit. And this particular crossing, there were two steam railroads that crossed here. They didn't want to be tied up by freight trains, and so they're bridging across. And here's what it looked like when they were done. You can see the overhead wire, the interurban up above. So here we are in downtown Chisholm. The station was right here in the hotel. This is another view looking the other way down towards the lake. Once again, here's the hotel and people getting on and off at the station. And now you're at the bottom of the hill looking up towards the top of the hill. That previous one was up here. And so the streetcar came down, turned the corner, ran a couple of blocks, and then it went across the lake on this big trestle. And then it went and ran right down the main street in Buell. And at Virginia, Virginia was the operating base. And so here you see the powerhouse. They had the big car shops. This is what they called an express motor. So in addition to carrying passengers, they also hauled packages and light freight. And this is the vehicle that did that. Here's another view of one of these cars. This one is equipped with a platform up here for maintaining the overhead wire. You can see there's a big overhead wire spool down here. Now, they experienced a pretty catastrophic fire in 1914, only a year or two after they opened up the line. And it destroyed about 2/3 of their fleet, and they had to go and reorder new interurban cars. And they rebuilt this complex. And so here you are on the northwest side of Virginia. There's a big lumber mill here. They're crossing one of the steam railroads. And this, I believe, is in Virginia. You can see the car is headed to Gilbert. Here you are in the middle of downtown Virginia. And another view, this is a few blocks south of that previous location in downtown Virginia, maybe about a block or two. And this is a passing siding, Thomas siding. You can see they've got, there was baseball played on the range, and of course they hauled a lot of people to baseball games. That's how you got there. Here we are in Eveleth, also in Eveleth. And then here we are approaching the end of the line in Gilbert, and the car would just pull into this Y, reverse direction, and go. Here's a car on the Y. It's backing in there to get turned around. And you can see Mesaba Railway waiting station in this storefront right here. And the crew posed on the Y. And there we go. That's the end of that.